Texas state Democrats that broke quorum and continue to do so. They've been fighting the good fight, and we've seen constant coverage about it. But I wanted to bring to you one of the Texas state representatives that is taking matters into her own hands, that is fighting fire with fire. That is Texas State Representative Mihaela Plesa. She represents District 70, Collins County. And she is one of those Texas Democrats that said, you know what, to hell with you, Governor Abbott, and your BS special session agenda. You're not helping Texans. You're not taking care of Texans. And until that becomes a priority, we're not going to help facilitate your sham agenda. And so at this point, I welcome you to listen to the words of Representative Plesa. She is an impassioned and incredibly inspirational politician and leader who is saying that she's going to put her constituents first. And joining me now on the Katie Phang News Channel is Texas Representative Mihaela Plesa. It is a privilege and an honor, Representative, to have you join me at this time. Let me start straight out of the gate. I know I echo the sentiments of a lot of Americans right now. Thank you. Thank you for the courage of breaking quorum and fighting fire with fire. I believe that you and your fellow Texas Democrats took the right position to tell Governor Abbott to shove it. And I want to say thank you straight out of the gate, because there is a sacrifice that has been kind of hand in hand, part and parcel of you guys breaking quorum.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's been the honor of my life to be part of this movement, and I'm so proud to be a Texas Democrat, and I'm so proud to have welcomed so many new Texas Democrats like yourself in this fight. Look, I think that we know, as the minority party, that sometimes these bad bills are going to pass, but the manner in which they pass is extremely important. It's the fight that we put up that shows our constituents why they elected us in the first place. And though I know that a lot of people are like, oh, these maps are going to pass anyways, had we not broken quorum, had we not taken these sacrifices, I mean, I have not just a warrant out for my arrest, but a wanted poster out for me. We knew that in taking this stand, it was important to get other states, to get other delegations involved. Because I think that what's lost in this conversation is what happened last year in North Carolina. Nobody was paying attention to North Carolina last year. That was a state that just recently elected a Republican governor. And because they had the ability, as we've heard some of my colleagues on the Republican side say, we can. Because they could, they did mid-decade redistricting. They carved up communities of color. They carved up communities, and they turned what was a 7-7 delegation in Congress into a majority Republican delegation. And it's that majority that passed bills like the big bullshit bill, right? Mm-hmm. Because that is the vote that was cast to cut Medicaid and Medicare. That was the vote that cut access to food nutrition programs in our country. Nobody was paying attention to North Carolina. So we had to make sure that the world was paying attention to Texas.
Well, you certainly have garnered that attention. I do want to talk about it because even though y'all were successful in Illinois, for example, in the fact that an Illinois court declined and actually schooled Abbott and Paxton and said, there is no legal basis for Illinois to get involved in Texas's business to issue an Illinois equivalent of a warrant to drag you guys back to Texas as Abbott and Paxton have been seeking. There is still in existence civil arrest warrants for you and your fellow Texas Democrats. I want you to explain to our viewers, there is a very real, legitimate, credible fear that's baked into having to deal with this. This is certainly not anything that you thought you signed up for when you ran to represent District 70.
Well, we knew that quorum break was a tool in our toolbox given to us by our founding fathers. We knew we had the opportunity to use it. And we knew from, previous examples that the speaker was probably going to put out some kind of civil warrant for our arrests in Texas. This is kind of the standard of this procedure. And so with generations past, delegations have gone to Oklahoma or other states' right to do what we're doing. What we didn't anticipate is the federal government getting involved. What we didn't anticipate is Senator Cornyn using his political clout and campaigning literally on our backs against Ken Paxton, and them wanting to one up each other to be not just cruel, but unethical. And we've seen them not use the legal system, but abuse the legal system to try to intimidate us. So the FBI is a clear threat. We've had to move multiple locations because of fear that conservative sheriffs in Illinois were going to do this bidding and do these things for political theater, essentially. But it's further than that. We have the governor of Texas putting out wanted posters on state members, increasing political violent rhetoric, which is extremely scary. And what all Texans, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, what all of them should be upset about is that I've been doing interviews in Illinois. I've been doing press conferences in Illinois, yet I have unmarked state troopers in front of my house, intimidating my family. No. They know full well I am not there. They are taking police officers off the beat to be stationed in front of my house knowing full well I'm not there. That's Texas taxpayer resources that are being abused. That is Texans that are not having security and protection from our police officers in case there's a robbery or whatever. They are literally just sitting in front of my house knowing full well I'm not there in order to increase the fines and increase the penalties. So you want to talk about wasteful spending? This is a perfect example of it.
Well, and Representative, I wanted to underscore as well, they're not just trying to do these civil arrest warrants to go to places like California, Illinois, to get you hauled back into Texas. Governor Abbott has also filed a petition for a writ of quo warranto against you and other Texas Democrats, including Chair Jean Wu, in an effort to have the Texas Supreme Court declare that you have, quote, vacated your seat, that you have abdicated your responsibilities and duties as a Texas state representative. And as such, your seat is suddenly now vacant. So anybody can be put into it or anybody can be running for that seat. Your thoughts about this suggestion in any way that you have, abandoned your seat? And I will be clear, Representative, I wanted to make sure that we have always been very careful in the use of language here and otherwise. Y'all didn't flee the state of Texas. You guys broke quorum and you guys are still doing your jobs as Texas state representatives, just maybe not within the four corners of the state of Texas.
Oh, absolutely. Look, first of all, I just want to set the record straight. If anybody fled their position, it was Ted Cruz.
Oh, yeah. Cancun Cruz, as I call him.
Of Texans died in Uri in this winter storm, and he was trying to flee Texas with his suitcase. I mean, we all remember that. Yep. So if anybody has fled or is abandoning their responsibilities, it's leaders like Ted Cruz, Cornyn, and Governor Abbott. After we had COVID that took so many lives, that shut down so many businesses, the governor didn't call a special session to deal with COVID. When we had Uri, he didn't call a special session to deal with the 700 Texans that perished. He has only called this special session because he wants to do the bidding of Donald Trump. We have been working harder than ever during this quorum break. I not only have been continuing my responsibilities as a state representative, holding town halls, which I had 160 people show up on a Monday night on a virtual town hall. I've never had that many people show up wanting to be part of this conversation. I'm continuing conversations with my city councilmen, with my school districts, making sure that they're prepared for the second called special session, hoping that Governor Abbott puts their priorities over Donald Trump's. So we have been doing our duties, but we've also been fighting for freedom and democracy. And so I think that it's laughable. I think that we've seen conflicting cases in the court systems. And if the Supreme Court does choose to vacate us, it will be historic. This has never happened in the history of Texas. And so I think that Republicans have a lot to fear as to the decisions that they've been making. Texans are waking up and they do not want what's happening.
I think what's outrageous is something that I try to underscore when we have conversations about this redistricting issue. And let me be clear, I should just call it gerrymandering because that's
Oh
really what it
yeah.
is. It's not redistricting. Redistricting, as we've always discussed, is legal and happens after decade censuses. And the next one should be in 2030. But this mid-decade gerrymandering that's happening is illegal and unconstitutional. I think what's particularly outrageous is the hypocrisy here. The maps that are purportedly bad, according to the Department of Justice under Trump, and according to Trump himself, and now Abbott and Paxton, those are Texas Republican maps.
Oh,
Those
absolutely.
are maps that were drawn by them. And now they're lying down and spitting up in the air and saying that these are bad maps.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that just shows the hypocrisy. I think that just shows more of the corruption and the power grab at play. And I think that was why we had to walk off the floor. This is a sham session, and I'm proud to have killed it. There was nothing about this session that was focused on Texans. I was elected by the constituents of House District 70 to put their priorities first. And their priorities are, do we have our schools funded? Do kids have the resources they need in this next starting school year? Are property taxes and insurance going to be affordable for my constituents? They do not care about making sure that Donald Trump has 5 more seats. What they care about is that the person that they elected is doing their job and representing them. And that's what my constituents asked of me. I was asked, please stop these maps and use every tool in your toolbox. So, like I said, look, this is not just a Texas issue. This is not going to stay within the, shape of our beautiful state. This is going to move to Indiana. This is going to move to Ohio. This is going to move to Missouri. And we need those Democrats in those assemblies to become Texas Democrats and to use all the tools in their toolbox to continue this movement. And I think that's how we win. I don't think it's one state or one specific session. I think it's all of us working together. And that's why I'm so excited to see Gavin Newsom file these maps, because Texas Democrats and Democrats across the nation, we're taking our white hat off. And we're ready to get down and dirty in the mud.
Yeah, talk about the breaking news with California Governor Gavin Newsom announcing the campaign for the new redistricting that's going to happen in Cali.
I'm so excited about this. Look, we needed Democrats to step up. I know that we have always been for independent redistricting commissions, and I'm still very much for us not drawing our own maps, because then it is used as a tool for political intimidation. I mean, we have colleagues in the Texas House saying when Texas Democrats come back, we need to redraw the House maps and the Senate maps to show them a lesson, which is completely unconstitutional. I mean, I don't know if these people are just don't like the Constitution or they can't read cursive, but they are breaking it at every step of the way. And so I think that it just shows the desperation of the Republican Party. It shows the callousness, and it shows that they are not thinking about their constituents. They're not thinking about their people as people. They're only thinking of them as, are you red or are you blue? And we are not just red and blue. We are a multitude of shades.
I want people to know your background, because I think that each of you stand for your constituents, but you also stand for your own learned experiences. You are a first-generation Romanian immigrant. Your family fled communism in the Soviet Union to come to the United States and the promise of what this country and the American dream had to offer your family. Your thoughts about how this is just another tool by the Republicans to gerrymander these maps, to exclude people of color, to exclude communities that look different than the stereotypical white Christian nationalists.
Well, absolutely. You're 100% right, Katie. Look, we know that when they drew these maps, they used some type of AI technology to dig deep into the voting patterns of these people, right? So even though Republicans are saying, we don't know what they're so upset about, these are predominantly Latino districts that we've created. What they've done is so disrespectful, because what they've done is they've taken minority populations like my mom, let's say, who was an immigrant, who maybe wasn't used to the culture of voting, right? And they're taking them because they're low propensity voters. They might need a little oomph. They need a little bit more education. Maybe they need documentation in their own language to inform them.
Sure.
They're taking these individuals and they're packing them with high propensity Anglo voters. And that's what we mean by they're diluting those voices, right? Look, my parents, when they fled communist Romania and they came to America, and I was born here in this country, and I was, raised in Texas. They always said, you don't know how lucky you are to be born here. You have a fair government. Your voice can be heard. You won't ever be intimidated by the government. You're not going to have warrants out for your arrest by the government. You're not going to have surveillance by the FBI. And now every single thing that my family fled a fascist country, a communist country about, is happening in my beautiful state of Texas. Look, Republicans are banning books. That's exactly what the communists did. Republicans are rolling back women's access to health care, exactly like the communists did. They're privatizing schools and limiting what can be taught. They're making us scared to use our voice and speak out against the government. This wasn't just about lines on our maps. This was about lives on the line. And this is about why so many immigrants, my family included, fled these countries to come here. And we have to stand up for that. So I'm proud to have joined the generations of my family who've been fighting fascism. I wish we wouldn't have to keep doing this stuff.
It's kind of wild to think that this is kind of the place where this is happening, right? I mean, it's the same concept for any family that has fled to come to this country, even if it was to just find a new and better place, that these are the battles that you have to wage. One thing that I really like to emphasize always is always paying attention to what's happening nationally, but for people to really now start to focus on local, state, municipal politics, because I feel like that is exactly what impacts you more on a daily basis, right? We do care about the big bullshit bill, and we do care about what happens in DC, but sometimes it's just the people that are impacting our lives and our backyards every day. You are now creating, you're a part of an army right now that is defending democracy so that people from your state can have representation that is fair and equitable on a national level. Talk about how that interplay feels for you to be working as a state representative, but protecting the ability for somebody to serve in Congress representing Texas.
So I first want to say I loved what you said earlier about everybody getting involved and understanding all the different positions on your ballot. When I ran at the first time in 2022, and even for my reelection in 24, I was in a district. I'm the first Democrat to represent Collin County in 30 years. So I flipped a seat that nobody thought we would be able to flip in Ken Paxton's backyard. And a lot of times people would be like, yeah, I got you. I'm voting for Kamala, or I got you. I'm voting for this Democrat at the top of the ticket. Sure. And I would say to them, please make sure that you go all the way down your ballot. Yeah. Because I am at the bottom of your ballot and I'm at your front door. The bottom of your ballot is closest to your front door. And so I would tell people, start from the bottom, because that's going to be your neighbor. That's going to be the person that's knocking on your door when your power is out, when your trees fall over because of a hard storm. I mean, that's the person that you're going to call. Your state and your local government is the closest to your home. They are your neighbor. I've never met I've never met Ted Cruz. I've never met John Cornyn, right? And they've never knocked on my door or asked for my vote. But the bottom of your ballot, your city council members, your school board members, your state representatives, these are the people that are in the trenches, and they are going to create the laws that you live under. How that matches into a larger scheme is what we're doing now, to say, look, we can't give you 5 more congressional seats because we know that lives are on the line here. Rural Texans are going to die. In this big bad bill, let me tell you, they did away with a tax on tanning beds. But yet we don't have funding for rural hospital beds. It just shows you the priorities in these bills. And so we are intertwined in a larger level, right? We are dependent on ourselves, our locals, and our congressionals to have good policies for Americans, right? My state, they didn't want to expand school meals for kids in the summertime, right? So it's dependent that we have federal resources coming in so the kids can eat, right? And that's the bigger picture, I think. We have our role in the local governments, but we do have to partner in with our congressional members too. And if my congressional members don't want to, fund school lunches, my kids are going to starve.
What's your response to the Republicans that are, my words, bitching and complaining about you guys breaking quorum, stating that the flash floods are not being addressed and school issues are not being addressed in Texas because the special session agenda that Abbott declared that began on July 21st, that because you guys are not there and there's no quorum, the quote, business of the state cannot be done?
Katie, this stuff pisses me off to the fullest. I'm so sorry. I get so
No, please.
angry when he says this stuff. He's saying it because he thinks that Texans and Americans are dumb. He's saying it because he doesn't think that you know what's going on. We have been begging them to put flood victims first. We had 9 hearings on redistricting and 2 on flooding. The first bill that was on the House floor wasn't to help kids that died in a flood. We know that 200 camps are in floodplains right now in the hill country in Texas. A report just came out that Texas knew that those camps were in a floodplain, that we knew those positions weren't filled to let people know what's coming. But instead of putting that on the 1-month anniversary of the flood victims on August 4th, they didn't put that on the agenda for the House floor. They put redistricting. They put Donald Trump. And so for anybody to say that we haven't been putting flood victims first, let's see if the governor puts flood victims on the call. Let's see if they move with flood relief first in this next special session, because my bet is that they're still doing the bidding of Trump. They're not Texans.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I know that Abbott has said he will just continue to call special session after special session. Thoughts about whether you all are going to come back to Texas to be able to be a part of any of those special sessions?
So eventually we do have to come back, not just because we're poor lawmakers and we don't make very much money. It's also because as we move through the system, there's a legal aspect and a legal apparatus that takes place. And we need to make sure that we get certain things on the record on the House floor for when that movement does move into the courts. So we knew that we weren't ever going to be able to stay out in perpetuity. And we knew that we were going to have a strong, legal argument to make on the House floor. The purpose of the quorum break was to activate more states, to get more constituents involved, to educate Texas at the power grab that's happening on their dollars, because every session that the governor calls costs the constituents of our state $1.5 million.
Oh my gosh.
So this is all being charged to them, and their priorities aren't being put first. And let me just say, the call shouldn't be about redistricting. The call should be why Texas is leading the nation in mass shootings. We just experienced another shooting in Austin this week where a small child lost their lives. That should be on the call.
Yeah, and the 10 commandments being on the walls in the public schools doesn't protect our kids like common sense gun legislation, not addressing the flash flood issue. The governor just announced a state of emergency because of flash flooding that's happening in real time in Texas. I mean, these are the things that are the most important for the people. But instead, when convicted felon Trump picks up the phone and tells Abbott, too bad Paxton's last name isn't Costello, but picks up the phone and tells Abbott and Paxton, y'all got to find me 5 seats. There's a rush to the bottom to be able for these people to go to the gates of hell and say, screw Texans, and let's totally make this about the Democrats, not quote unquote, not doing their jobs, but forget the Texans because we don't really care. We're just going to try to do what our cult leader wants us to do. That's the really disgusting thing. And I really very quickly want you to talk about this dynamic. John Cornyn is sticking his stupid nose into all of this, as you've mentioned, but people need to be reminded it's because he and Greg Abbott, what are they doing?
Well, I think they're all running for higher office.
There you go.
They all have higher political aspirations, and they're all trying to be in Trump's favor.
There you go.
And so I think that, between Ken Paxton and Cornyn trying to run for senator of
That's
Texas, right. I think you see Greg Abbott trying to bend his knee as much as possible for Donald Trump. I mean, him and DeSantis have always tried to be Donald Trump's bestie.
Let me hold my beer. Here we go. Exactly.
But Texans are tired of this. Look, the redistricting, the gerrymandering, that's one symptom of it. But Texas just passed the largest voucher scam in the nation. Our schools are going to be defunded as we go into the next school year. Thank you, Donald Trump. That came from him. He made another call, just like he did before, called all these Republicans and told them to vote against their interests in their rural districts. And so that's why they need to rig the game, because their policies aren't working for the people they represent. Whether you're a rural Texan and you need a hospital or a school, they don't care. If you're in a floodplain and you need warning infrastructure, they don't care. What they care is any means necessary to withhold power, even if it's unconstitutional.
Well, listen, Texas State Representative Mihaela Plesa, my admiration has no limits for, again, your courage and your bravery to do this. We need everyone to step up in the ways that they are capable to be in the pro-democracy space, to fight for what is right. And I agree. I've said this time and time again, I'm a big fan of Michelle Obama, and I understand the, I think, now outdated sentiment that when they go low, we go high. I am fully prepared to punch the bully back in the nose, and that is exactly what you all have been doing. So thank you. Thank you for the sacrifice, and thank you for being willing to have this conversation with me here. I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Katie. And if I could just say one thing.
Of course.
All of this is happening in the shadow of the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And I can't stop thinking about John Lewis. I can't stop thinking about the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And I can't stop thinking about his mugshot, considering I might have one myself pretty soon. And I'll just want to leave one last sentiment with your watchers and your listeners. When John Lewis was arrested, he was smiling in his mugshot. And the reporter asked him, "Why are you smiling?" And he said, "I'm smiling because I know I'm on the right side of history, and we must all find a way to get in the way." So I just encourage all of you guys to find a way to get into some good trouble and get in the way of some bad guys.
That just gave me the chills. Thank you, Representative Plesa. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Such a blessing to be with you today.
Thank you. Katie Phang here. We launched the Katie Phang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. Straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.